put it in place, that I understand that you guys are. And I don't know production. This is, obviously my weak point. I'm not shy about it. I want everybody to feel comfortable to tell me on a production side the way something isn't working the way we're doing it. But ultimately, your safety is my first and priority concern. That's our concern. Nobody is doing anything maliciously or without thought. We do everything that we can to make sure that every single person on the set is safe. Evidence-based safety. CDC, WHO, white pages, union, everybody. Okay? And this is all agreed on previously. This is all preset. That being said, we are learning, right? There are a lot of situations in which we cannot know how to deal with until we come to that. And that's where we are good at this. I pivot and adapt, and we make solutions. And if at the end of the day it's unsafe, we have to make that call. So this is for you to get to know me, the rest of the health and safety team, and answer any and all questions. No question is dumb, no question is small, and I truly mean that because we're dealing with a virus where we know that we don't know everything. And I'm going to tell you I don't know everything because that would be crazy to know everything about what we're doing. But what we've done is put in place protocols that we can best protect ourselves and use that as a guideline to move forward. So, being 3 days in, I'm obviously going to call all my associates to also answer questions, but I have a long history with infection control, and so this is something that I think we can work through and we can answer your questions. And I'd love to answer them and also be here. And if you have ideas about how to do something better, please let me know. Because best idea wins. That's how that goes. And if it's possible, we will do it. Of course, everything has to be routed up through the chain, and sometimes that takes time. But your safety is paramount. So do I have a first grade question? Okay, so the question was, is there a possible way we can do temperature checks at crew parking? And that there isn't a method of this, but the fact is that we put out protocols that everybody should be checking their own temperature at home. That is, am I incorrect? Am I just like putting out, everybody should have done that. That's a part of when you come onto set. And I also want to say that temperature is 20% of symptoms. It's not 100%. So we also have to be checking in with ourselves. How are you physically feeling? Are you ill? Those other things are also indicators. So we need to be doing that at any time. Our test to help double check and say, hey, did you check in with yourself today? Is there something wrong? Do you feel like you felt come in contact with anybody? It's a double check, not the first step. Yeah, hold on. The issue with temperature checks is it is a medical diagnosis, so we are not qualified to take any vital signs or take temperatures because it's a medical diagnosis. Also, when you do it, it has to be private because it is a medical diagnosis. So we have to have a trained professional do that, and at this time, Disney doesn't feel like that we're in the position to do that and be able to give advice based on temperature.
But that being said, the grips have provided CDC temperature scanning devices back in your check away from anyone else, but we provided that if you guys want to get checked on your own for your own safety and knowledge, it's in the back of the grip chuck. You put your arm up there and check the skin test. But that's totally separate from anybody else here. That's just there for anyone that wants to use it, socially distanced, of course.
and I appreciate that. I do think that there's a liability in go to one place to get a temperature test, but honestly, I don't think the forehead skin temperature tests are 100% all the time. I don't, like, the only way to really accurately do it, and in the hospital, it reads the skin, and so there are inherent, I would say, confidence in saying, oh, I don't have a temperature, I don't have COVID. That's not necessarily true. And if you're using one measure to measure if you're okay for the day, that's not going to be safe enough. And I would not, and I understand that you should be taking your own temperature. Not everybody's going to do that every morning, but you need to check in with yourself as well and see how you feel. So there's a reason that we don't do that. Did I answer your question, sir? Maybe not necessarily the answer you wanted.
Yes. It's just a policy. It's a policy that we're not allowed to take temperatures at the door for the reason.
Just reiterating that it's a Disney policy. We're not allowed to take temperatures at the door.
Because there are discrepancies between states, and until they decide it's a medical diagnosis, we obviously cannot. But if you need a thermometer, we have them.
We do provide thermometers, alternatively. Yes, sir. Yes. Okay. And you, yes, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So Laura's the only one. Okay, so the question was, what's the difference between getting a temperature test and our COVID results? Those are medical information. One, we're not, the temperature for medical would require interpretation, right? We're getting a positive or a negative, and that helps us inform. And I want to hit something. Testing isn't a protection measure in a very real sense. The protection measure is mask, social distancing, and hand washing, or sanitizing, right? Testing is to track, and I like that this morning, you can get tested, step out this door, become exposed, and then 3 days later become positive. And that test is meaningless. So by using testing as our guiding star of what we're doing, it's going to really lead us in a wrong direction. We're using it as a tracking measure, and not as, it is a level of protection, but it's not as strong as mask, social distancing, and hand washing. And it's truly, from my standpoint, coming from the hospital, this is something that is real. It's not something that I think over the last several months everybody's been hyper exposed to this sort of information. It's real, it's useful, and I feel confident. And just because I feel confident doesn't mean you have to, but coming from that side, these things do work and these measures do work. So, and I want everybody to know there is a level of personal responsibility we all have to have. That the set monitors, they're learning, we're learning. Everybody has to be mindful that if they realize they're within 6 feet of somebody for a longer period of time, we need to start training ourselves to have little red flags that pop up and say, well, let me step back for a couple and get away. Because that is where our personal responsibility kind of steps in. And that's what we're also kind of trying to help train to do, help understand to do. Any questions on that or anything else? Continue. Did we answer your question? So this is something that we've discussed multiple times, and this is something I've talked to my senior leadership about, and we've had multiple discussions. The situation as it is now is that we do, oh, I'm so sorry. Is there, tell me if I'm wrong, it's about testing. Are we able to turn around faster on testing? Because obviously I think we inherently see the problem of getting tested on Monday, and then we worked all day, Tuesday, and then that afternoon we realized, something that we've been around that's happened, right? That is the situation in which we're in, because that's the only way we can effectively say that 99.9%, this is definitely what's happening. Rapid testing for the evidence, not peer-reviewed, but a multiple studies, what we call a literature review, was done on rapid testing versus the PCR, which is preliminary chain reaction, which is the long-term testing, okay? That is not a good sensitivity. It's at 52.6% sensitivity. You cannot 100% say that that's for certain that test is valid. And then when at that time frame you have the rapid test, the other test might be coming in if you do it on an off day. So that's not something that's in our protocols. Disney has not approved that for us. That is not something that we can move forward with. So knowing this fact, it's a fact that this is the way that we're going to have to do testing. Not that we're not searching for other alternatives or that those discussions aren't being had, but just in the matter of time that we have it now, those are the restrictions we have on the way that we have to move forward. Yes, absolutely. Hold on, Laura.
The other part of that is the companies that we are using have been vetted by Disney. They are constantly looking at companies that provide the quickest results. If you're not doing a rapid test, the general turnaround time is 48 hours. We are getting most of ours back within probably about 16. Some of you started to get it early yesterday morning. So they do it in batches, but for us to have them before, so if we test on Monday, really we shouldn't see results until Wednesday. So we are getting them much quicker than a lot of places are. Some provide 5 to 6 day testing. But our guarantee is 48 hours because that's generally how long it takes to do the test, get it to a proper lab who is going to handle it appropriately, process the results, get it into the system, and get it back to us. So the fact that we're getting them back as quick as we do is actually a good thing.
Yes, sir.
Oh my God, I would put that person for what is the definition that we should be using to know that we were safe or we were what I
The question was, how do we know, first of all, the definition of close contact, and then why do we have this confidence that we've been working on set all day with this person that we obviously know is positive and they turned around to be positive, and how do I have the confidence that I wasn't considered a close contact? And it's an important question that one which it hinges upon how we decide we move forward, right? I have the literal protocol definition, and then we'll talk about it, is for purposes of this protocol, close contact means direct contact with someone via touching, sneezing, coughing around them, or indirect contact being 6 feet / 2 meters of them for more than 15 minutes. 15 minutes or more. So that means if we're on set all day, and I wear a mask and you wear a mask, and we only spend, let's say, 8 minutes next to each other watching a monitor, and then we separate, that's not considered close contact. Now, for our talent, you're maskless, and it's incredibly scary for you to be in that position. Our job is to monitor you and monitor those people around you and make sure that we're tracking everything that's happening, and that's why we have red zone. That's why people who have to wear shields and masks around you, especially maskless, because that is considered the safest way. And there's a time limit, and there's a time frame we're all working with before we're fogging, before we step out, before we do all those things. And the inherent risk is that you are taking off your mask, and that is the fact of the life that we're living in. but close contact is not considered. I was around them in the same hallway all day if you're all wearing masks. Okay? If you're all wearing masks and you never take off your mask in that hallway and you're washing your hands and you're watching your distance, that's not considered a close contact per protocol. And this isn't just something that Disney derives, it's based off of scientific evidence, which then they put into their white pages, which then they put into the way forward. So this has been triple, quadruple vetted, that this is the protocol we move forward for a reason, to protect everybody. Everybody has the same goal here, we're all on the same team, and we are really, really thinking about the best ways to do things. And I know that there have been questions and issues and things moving forward, but 100% close contact is one of those things we're watching. And it's one of those things that why we have people on set, why we move breakaway for a cast and do a red zone, do a yellow zone, do pathways. These are all things to reduce close contact in general. Did I answer your question, sir?
Go ahead, you wanna?
The other thing when we think about close contact is when we were talking about the other day, in the COVID is, just as a reminder, it is a respiratory droplet disease. So that's over by 90+%. The way that you contract it is coming in contact with respiratory droplets. As stated in the protocol, when it says close contact with somebody who might be spitting, coughing, sneezing, or anything like that, you have to come in contact with the respiratory droplets. So if you are keeping your hands clean and people have masks on and face shields, the chance of you coming in contact with the respiratory droplets is very, very minimal. And by that is why it's so important to keep your hands clean. Because you're either going to pick it up off of something that where somebody has sneezed or cough on, but if you have your mask on, it reduces it so much that there is very little hazard associated with that.
Yeah, could you explain what the zones are? There's been some confusion about who's supposed to be wearing, who's not supposed to be wearing. The difference between red, the yellow, and where you're not supposed to wear it.
So this is a question about the zone. And keep in mind I'm 3 days in. This is something that has been discussed all throughout my orientation, all throughout the meetings that we have. Red zone is, there's red zone and yellow zone, and then there's alternatively green zone, and we should never see them, right? So red zone is anybody who's approved to be near cast, unmasked. That person who is in the red zone, if they're near cast, unmasked, then you must be wearing a face shield and a mask. 100%. And if you are yellow zone and you are near that cast, so we put out cones, and you see the pathways, the cones and the flags. We put out the pathways because the yellow is allowed to be where they are, because it's a far enough distance away from cast when they are unmasked. Okay? So if they say, all right, and Ian has been great about calling it out, saying that, okay, everybody who's not red zone and is not PPE'd, we're taking off PPE, and everybody has to be out of that area. It doesn't mean, and unfortunately, when we make the pathways, we know that yellow zone people are going to have to cross into the red zone for setting up and all of these things, and we know that that's going to be the case sometimes, especially, you know, in the kind of set 2 or set 3 when things are a little bit more circular. But we do the best we can. So when the red zone really is hard hitting and exists when cast removes their mask and they're filming, and then they immediately remask, and then it then becomes yellow zone. Okay, but that doesn't mean if you're yellow zone you run into the red zone because you cast is masked. It just means that we have designated areas. We're trying to keep people isolated. Now, this does relate to how much time, like how many times a week you've been tested, and parts of your team are tested more than other parts, and these are all things that, like, we're working on as we go. But that's the general idea. Did I answer your question? Do I have more?
I would tell you it's also the background because they're also ambassadors.
Great point. It is also the background as well. And the background is, there's a lot more of them to keep an eye on, so we really have to be careful about where we put those zones and where you're walking and what part of filming we're at. So when that's activated,